Ladies and gentlemen, gamers, welcome back to the channel. By the time you see this video, Emerald Bear will have released, and this is the most exciting time for Co3 fans since the launch of the game. This update is by far the most comprehensive. It's going to have a major impact on Co3 moving forward, and I couldn't be more excited. So we're going to jump through these patch notes, 1.2.0. It's a massive update, so these patch notes are really long. I'm not going to read through everything, but I'm going to read through the most important things and get this discussion going. By the time you see this, the game update will already have been released, and I'm sure many of you guys will be playing, but I still want to read through this with you guys and see what is in store for us in the days to come. So let's start from the top. The Emerald Bear update is packed full of gameplay improvements and balance adjustments. We're also introducing 2 new maps in the first version of our player profile. Be sure to review all the changes and fixes below. All right, new content, features, and improvements. Multiplayer maps, as you guys have seen in the past streams, Benghazi, the 3v3 map, and Monte Cavo, the 4v4 night map, are both going to be available in auto match, co-op, AI, every single mode, which is fantastic. I can't wait to jump into these maps. And be on the lookout, guys. In the Discord, I'll leave a link of the description to that in the channel below. But look out for that, because I'll be inviting subscribers to play some of these large team games in the days to come. Player profile. Added a new player profile feature. The player profile displays information about ranked match ratings, player rank, and additional statistics about the matches. Guys, I did a video about this recently, so you can go ahead and check that video out as well. Menu improvement, social interaction options. Players can now find all social interactions by clicking the little dots button next to a player's name. Yep, we talked about that. Okay, challenges. Major changes to challenges. A lot, as you can see here. There's a ton. And I do like this. So, for example, let's just read the first one. Ace of Spades. Build 5 U.S. forces fighting positions in a match. Reduce completion count from 3 to 2. Okay. So, what I'm hoping here, let's read the second one. Buzzsaw, deploy 5 Wehrmacht MG42 machine gun teams in a match. Reduce completion count from 5 to 2. So, yeah, they're basically making these a lot easier, because some of these are just kind of like memes. Like you're never going to build 5 or 3 fighting positions in a match. And, 1 or 2 makes sense, but I like that these are not changing the gameplay too much, where players are forced to do strategies that are unorthodox, that are technically bad, right, that they wouldn't do otherwise. So I like that they're making these more realistic. So Easy 8 one, for example, kill 8 allied vehicles with Africorps Flak 36 anti-tank gun in a match, reduce completion from 8 to 1. Yeah, so again, looks like they're just, making every single challenge just more easy overall, which is great to see. Gameplay challenges and balance, vehicle mobility and pathfinding, end of movement. Add a new functionality for vehicles to end their movement order at a set distance before a blocker. Okay, that's perfect. So they're not overcommitting or running through things on the terrain. So that's nice to see, and it will allow you to pivot a lot easier. So the movement's going to end quicker. You'll be able to pivot and micro your tanks and vehicles much more easily. Infantry and vehicle blocking. Infantry units no longer ignore moving vehicles and try to path around them. So yeah, so that's great. I mean, infantry units no longer ignore moving vehicles and try to path around them. Yeah, so like before, it would get really kind of glitchy, and as even when you're retreating, you'd have like blockers. So it's just going to be nice to have that fluidity. Because one thing I noticed about Co3 is if you're moving tanks and infantry at the same exact time, the pathing would get all messed up. And sometimes players have everything selected. So it's just going to make that a lot easier. All right, fun face, movement preference. Vehicles now use their original facing direction for most movement orders. Front facing movement. Okay, so that's good. That makes it a lot easier just to know exactly, kind of predict exactly where the vehicles are moving. Formation movement. Vehicles now adhere to their formation as expected when performing formation movements instead of converging to the same point. Yeah, that's huge. Yeah, so there are obviously vehicles in different spaces, right? Within a specific set of terrain are not going to just all converge to one small little point on the map, which is good, because that's not really what you want, right? You're looking for it to have that space so you can maneuver and have stronger formations. Phasing through units. Vehicles are now allowed to phase through each other and through enemy vehicles that are moving, although they will still prefer to move around if possible. Yeah, so it's not full phase through. I know a lot of you guys were kind of frustrated with this mechanic, especially like moving through bridges and so forth, but it's not a full phase through. It's not like they're just going to be phasing through each other and it's be completely unrealistic. It's not going to be like that. I think there still will be a lot of room for, tactical entrapments and blockades, and I think overall it's just going to make it much easier for you to maneuver. Preference to not go around even if path is blocked. Okay, so vehicles will no longer go off the path while chasing enemies. This change was made to address unpredictable vehicle behavior when the vehicle path is blocked in chases. Yeah, so if the path was blocked, the vehicle would just take a really crazy route all the way around or so forth, which is not something you would do, right? You're going to realize that it's blocked and you're going to make the proper adjustments. So it's nice that you're able to just have that. Your units are not going to be running out randomly doing things that you wouldn't have them otherwise. Road preference to prevent vehicles from responding unpredictably and often veering to roads instead of taking the shortest route to the order location. Road preference was turned off. Yeah, so we saw this. John already showed this in the recent stream. It is fantastic because obviously you want to have control of quickest routes, and the context is much more complicated than the AI can often predict, right? So that's nice to see. Vehicle turning has been improved to prevent them from pivoting on the spot or losing too much momentum while turning. This change is meant to improve responsiveness with vehicles, especially during flanks. Yeah, that was one of the most difficult things. Going for flanks with vehicles in the previous iteration of the game was very hard because your tanks, in order to pivot, would have to completely stop, turn, and then move. And it was very difficult to get that smooth, quick flank while using the entire vehicle speed of the specific unit. And speaking of vehicle speed, we have changes to that. All vehicles in the game had their speed, acceleration, and rotation rates adjusted. This change helps improve the responsiveness of a number of vehicles and creates a differentiation between all vehicle classes. Wow. So every single vehicle is going to have a change here, guys. I don't have the previous context of the speed and rotation, acceleration, and deceleration of every unit. I'm sure it's on Co3 stats, but something we should take a look at because every single vehicle in the game, I mean, this is US Forces, Wehrmacht, British, and DAK. Every unit is getting a complete adjustment with their speed and rotation. So this is a huge change. I mean, just think about that. Every single vehicle has a speed change here. And we're just going down the list of all the vehicles. I mean, the implications of this is massive. We'll have no idea how different the meta is going to be in a couple months from now, because it's going to take time for us to figure out exactly, what is optimal, what is really strong. But massive changes. I mean, this is bigger changes than new units releasing like a battle group. Honestly, this is going to have a huge impact on the game. Okay, event queues. All event queues have received an art pass and will now look more cohesive with one another. Event queues have been further adjusted to reduce how often they appear on the player's screen. I don't care for these event queues, but perhaps a lot of you guys use them, and I could see how they could be useful. So it's nice to see that they're becoming more intuitive on the screen. End of match results, damage dealt and damage taken stats no longer include environmental damage or friendly fire. Okay, good. Killed stats such as soldiers killed and vehicles killed no longer include friendly fire. That's good. Squads lost stat at the end of the match now shows the correct number. Yeah, so it's just going to be a lot more informative. Before, it was very generalized and it was very hard to know how well you actually played. And then lastly, unit efficiency fixed and changed from percentage to a ratio efficiency factor. Okay, nice. I hope we get some UI changes on the post-match screen as well. Make it look cooler. I love the Code 2 post-match after action report. It looks really cool, really nice. All right, minimap and tactical map. Ooh, are we getting a change to this? The animation for out-of-supply sectors has been updated to be in line with previous Company of Heroes games, flashing between two different tones of blue or red for enemy territories. That is great, because it is so much easier to notice these little things happening when you have the tactical map, when there's just a differentiation between events and actions. Territory lines are no longer disappear in out-of-supply sectors. Okay, so this is a good improvement, but I would still like to see the icons reduced. They're too large. That's like a big thing for me. I love to use a tactical map, and it's very hard, and especially in larger team games where there's so many icons that they're overlapping each other, and you really can't use it. It's very difficult. Okay, modding. To ease the work of modders who might want to approach the tuning of flight and off-map systems for the first time, we've created archetype abilities in the attribute editor to look at and use as inspiration source. Okay, very nice for modders out there. Appreciate you guys a lot. Off-map abilities, multiplayer. All right, here we go. This is going to get interesting. The intent of the changes to off-map abilities is to deliver a more robust, reliable, and responsive system, while also improving the experience by providing more tells from both a visual and audio standpoint. Off-map audio. Added projectile sounds to off-map abilities that vary with the type of ability. So they're adding sounds to kind of signal to you. In addition to different sounds to help you predict what's coming, there's going to be flares. So both off-map and flight abilities will now use expanded set of flares, which will indicate the danger level of an ability. So different sounds and a different color flare. So added yellow colored flares for low threat abilities, okay, like the mortar barrage. So yellow is low threat. Added orange for medium threat, like strafing runs and standard off-map abilities with medium caliber weapons. So all medium caliber is going to be orange. And the existing red color flares will now announce heavy threat abilities like bombing run, rocket runs, loiters, and higher map off-map abilities. The green colored flares will be kept for paradrop related abilities. Okay, so they're standardizing this across the board for all factions. I have two thoughts on this. Number one, I really like this change in the sense that you'll be able to, you'll be rewarded for knowing the game well, right? For understanding the different abilities, you'll be able to counteract appropriately. If you see a yellow flare come down, you know it's low threat, you can adjust slightly, right? You could slowly move. You're not going to do a full retreat, right? And so forth. If you see a red flare and you know the game well and you understand these abilities, you understand your opponent, which battle group he chose, and you say, oh, okay, that's going to be naval bombardment. I need to get out now. And you retreat. You're rewarded for that as a good player. You're reacting properly. That's on one side why I like it. The negative side is lower threat abilities, like the yellow flare abilities, like the mortar barrage, is not going to be able to have as much impact because your opponent is going to know exactly what it is. So he might not reposition, whereas before, he doesn't know what kind of artillery is coming, but he knows something is coming, and he's going to move accordingly. And what the ability does, no matter what threat it is it forces your opponent to reposition. So I don't know. I like both. And to be honest, I kind of prefer this new system. I kind of prefer to reward players for understanding the different threats and to have these standardized colors in the game. I think it's going to add a cool set of interactions, and it's going to force the players who are using the artillery to be more particular, to be more methodical, to be more decisive with how they use it. You can't just use a low threat anymore to force a total reposition of your opponent's army. You're going to have to be a little bit more calculated. So overall, I think it's a good change. All right. Sector off maps. Added sector highlight on both the minimap and tactical map that will inform players which territories are being covered by a sector ability. Sector abilities used by the player or allies will highlight the affected territories in yellow. Those from opponents will turn them orange. Okay, so allies, yellow, opponents, orange, sector highlights. That's fantastic. Once again, just UI improvements to help us in a game during all the chaos understand what's going on. Ability adjusted various reticles for abilities to match the effective radius or the ability type. Okay. Ground deformation. Off-map ability projectiles now do ground deformation damage. Awesome. And once again, I love deformation. I love the fact that your artillery can be used as cover as you advance, and as defensive players dig back into positions that have been artilleried, they have those defensive bonuses. I think it's really cool. Adds to the flavor of a match. Even though the whole terrain has been decimated, there are still new positions to take. Okay, U.S. Forces. U.S. Forces Special Operations Battle Group rating flares considerably reduce the ability delay. There was quite a bit of a delay. The ability will now correctly spawn a flare on the highlighted territories. Okay, so there wasn't one before. Wehrmacht. Breakthrough battle group, zeroing artillery barrage. Shells will initially drop more scattered and in fewer number, increasing in number and accuracy over time. Very interesting concept. I don't know how much I like this. I'm thinking about this right now, and I'm thinking, normally when you do an ability, when you first do the ability, you're dropping it on the position that you want it to hit, right? But your opponent is going to have time to react. So I'm thinking to myself, you can't necessarily, if it's not really accurate in the beginning, as is being stated here, right? It's gonna drop more scattered, so it's not going to be accurate in the beginning. So you can't predict where your opponent's moving. If your opponent is moving back, you can't drop it on his retreat path because it's going to be scattered, technically, right? So what's going to happen here is it's going to punish players who haven't moved out of the way, right, over time. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to lessen the impact of the artillery. It's not going to be as accurate initially. It's going to give your opponent time to move out. But what it's going to force him to do, because it becomes more dangerous over time, because the accuracy increases over time, he's going to have to be forced to move out of that position. So at the very least, you're forcing his army to move. And I think that's the overall goal from Relic here. But, you know, compared to other artilleries in like Co2, for example, you know, you have artilleries that would be they would take time to drop, but they'd be very accurate. They would drop exactly where you place them. And those have their proactive and reactive implications as well that are good. So I think for zeroing artillery, it's kind of funny that it's not becoming more. I mean, it makes sense because zeroing artillery, technically, right, it zeroes in. It gets more accurate. So this is not a standardized change for all artillery. This is pretty specific, and I do like it. I think as I'm thinking about it more, it'll be nice to force repositions and also do scatter damage in the beginning, and then really force your opponent out of the position you want. I hope that makes sense. It's kind of my general thoughts on it. British Forces, Indian Artillery Battle Group, off-map airburst barrage, adjusted to be significantly more reliable. Yeah, so it was like sprinkled before, and didn't do that much damage. Reduced ability effectiveness against neutral buildings. So it's not going to do as much against buildings, but it's going to become much more reliable. What that means, I'm not sure. More accurate, maybe, more damage. Perimeter Monitor. Perimeter Monitor will feature 3 separate artillery that will individually target any visible unit with heavy artillery, followed by a delay before new targets are acquired. Very interesting. Looks like I need to update my mouse. Perimeter Monitor now shows area of effect on the covered sectors for both the minimap and tactical map. Sectors affected will be yellow to the player team and orange to the enemy. So yeah, guys, remember that. Yellow to the player team and orange to the enemies. British Armored Battle Group Recon Artillery, now usable anywhere on the map except on HQ areas. That makes sense. That makes sense because it's a recon artillery, right? Recon Artillery Airplane Column now gives vision for artillery to be dropped on visible enemy units. Fantastic. So now it can be used as a real strong synergy in reconnaissance. Ability will now end if the recon plane... Oh, this is huge. So ability will now end if the recon airplane gets destroyed. I think they mentioned that in the stream as well. But this one, I love giving more relevance to AA. Players should have the ability to use anti-air. So I love the fact that the airplane stays in the air for a long time, but can get shot down. Enemy units inside their HQ sectors will not be targeted by artillery, even if inside the area of effect. Wow. Okay, so that makes sense. You don't want HQ units being hit. They shouldn't be. They should be off limits. Munition costs reduced from 180 to 150, so it's cheaper. Plane health increased from 240 to 640. Okay, so even though they can be shot down, you're still going to get some use out of the ability. It's not going to get shot down as quickly. So I love this change. I think Recon Artillery is going to be... It's a really cool ability, and it should have more relevance. British Air and Sea Battle Group. Here we go. Assault flares, frontline sectors will be highlighted on the mini-map and tactical map, and recon flares will be dropped to provide vision of the area. Rate of fire bonuses decrease from 50% to 25%. Naval bombardment, ability rework to significantly more lethal and reliable. That's an understatement. This thing is insane. This thing literally destroys everything in its path. Heavily increase the number of projectiles fired. But that said, I can't wait to use this. It's going to be awesome. Okay, DAK. Propaganda war. Ability will now correctly work only on squads capable of retreating. Oh, wow. Okay. Slightly reduce the delay after which units are retreated. Okay, so yeah, this before would work on like AT guns and so forth. That makes sense. I like that. I think that's a good change. Slightly reduce the delay after which units are retreated. So, yeah, when you would retreat, even normal retreats, but propaganda war as well. When you would retreat, there would be a massive input delay, and it was very frustrating because sometimes you only have a couple seconds to get out. Obese. I don't know how to pronounce this. Ability rework to be significantly more reliable. Registered artillery can now be cast on player-owned victory points independent by the owner of the resource sector. That's good. I like that. Shells will initially drop more scattered and fewer number and increase in accuracy over time. So it looks like that is becoming more of a theme. Updated projectiles area effect profile to be more effective. Nice. I think we did see this in the stream. Looked pretty strong. Okay. Italian combined arms, artillery cover. Enemy units inside their HQ sectors will not be targeted, so that's being standardized. Good. Radius increased considerably. That's good. The ability will feature 3 separate artillery that will individually target any visible infantry, team weapon, and vehicle, dropping flares before each barrage. Okay, so it looks like it's going to target anything now. 3 separate artillery. Okay. I don't think this was the case before. I think before it was targeting mostly infantry. You guys can correct me on that, but I think they're trying to get it to be targeting any unit type now. I think it was only infantry before. When the ability is used, it will now highlight the covered area and start looking for possible enemy targets. Okay, good. Much more reliable artillery cover. Team weapons. All right, a lot of changes to team weapons. This will be interesting. Aim while on reload cooldown cycles. Team weapons can now move the barrel to acquire a new target while the reload or cooldown phases of the team weapon are happening. They will no longer wait for these phases to be completed before acquiring a target. Okay, so this is good. One thing I'm a little weary of is of team weapons becoming too strong. Some team weapons are really effective already, as we've seen in the past couple months. Especially the MG42 is considered very strong by pretty much everyone in the community. I do like the fact that they're more responsive. So while they're reloading and cooling down, they'll still be able to move their barrel and turn. Now, what I'm curious about it, and you guys have probably noticed this as well, the MGs, when they're turning to try and get a unit on their flank, it's a very, very slow turn radius. So slow it almost doesn't make sense. Now, I'm curious if they're able to acquire a new target while reloading and their turn radius is now increased. I think that seems too strong to me. But I'm very curious to see how they prioritize and how quick they target new enemies. So the speed in which they target new enemies is more interesting to me. But this is nice. Idle state. Team weapons are now able to track and start the setup process much better when the weapon is not set up and an enemy moves into range. Previously, it was possible that the team weapon would indefinitely try to follow the center of a squad as it moved. Yeah, so very important. I think this is going to be a big change. Prioritization. Team weapons now only start to tear down if all entities of the target enemy squad are out of the arc of fire. Previously, it was possible entities from this squad were still targetable, but the team weapon chose to tear down. Okay, yeah, so way more responsive, way more efficient in terms of prioritization. So we're going to have to learn how to micromanage these team weapons a little bit differently now. But overall, it seems like they're going to be stronger. Tear down, team weapons now tear down much faster. Barrels now snap to the center quicker to allow team weapons to start the teardown process. This makes team weapons more responsive. Wow. So yeah, I mean, again, another major buff, guys. This seems like a small change, but it has major implications. Okay, turn in place range. Team weapons now have a range around them at which giving a reface order won't make them move to the location. Most of the time when doing a proximity click near a team weapon with a reface order, the intent of the player is to pivot and not move, which add extra delay. So really responsive now. Unit selection. Unit increase the selection boxes for infantry. This will help when selecting infantry both for the players and opponents. I can't tell you guys how many times I've been trying to select my units and I'm selecting them. It should select them, but the unit box is not being hit. So this is going to help a lot with just little misclicks in the game. This would happen to me almost every game, so it's very nice to see. Retreated units no longer remain selected or selectable. This is huge, guys. For hotkeys, for dragging, you're not going to get messed up on your hotkeys or your unit selection when a unit is retreated. This is huge, absolutely huge. When reselecting units, the game will now reset any previously open menus, such as construction. Thank you very much. That should be a no-brainer. Faction and ability changes, guys. We're just like halfway through this. This is nuts. Okay, auto reverse. Anti-tank guns and all vehicles. Auto reverse range is now reduced to 40 from 60. So they're standardizing this. Anti-tank guns and all vehicles. Okay. Yeah, so very, very interesting. So I would like to see... Oh, man, I don't know how much of a change this is going to have. But I would like to see the ability to turn this off and on. This auto reverse, so that you can use the hotkey and you can micromanage this yourself as well. I don't know if they're going to make that available in the future. Camouflage ambush bonuses. All infantry squads now use the same camouflage ambush bonus, plus 40% accuracy and plus 25% damage for 5 seconds when firing from camouflage. So I think this is a great change, guys, because it fits with the streamlined standardization that you've seen from Relic over the past few months. They're really trying to standardize the flight system, vehicles, as you see here, camouflage, artillery, airborne drops. They're trying to make it so that you can understand easily and predict what each unit archetype, each categorization of unit is capable of doing. And I think this is fantastic. I would like to see it a little bit more in other areas. But I'm sure they'll get to that. Okay, casemate tank destroyers, martyrs, Stug 3s, Brumbars, Salvaventes, 75mm half-track gun mortar carriage. Casemates will now center themselves when a target is outside its arc. Casemates guns now track their target without moving their hull. Casemates guns now traverse, target, and fire within their arc without needing to be perfectly centered. This is huge, especially this right here. They now traverse. So the fact that tank destroyers now traverse means that they're not going to have these weird delays and be turning their whole chassis in these awkward movements when you need to be micromanaging and reversing them and firing in those instances. So they're going to be a little bit easier to manage. They're not going to be, I assume, they're not going to be turning awkwardly as much as they were before. So that's fantastic to see. This is going to change the meta dramatically. Tank destroyers still have a huge implication in the game. Okay, especially because they're cheaper, right? They're, martyrs and stugs are relatively cheap and hit the battlefield quicker. So I expect to see some big changes, although stugs are going to get a nerf, they said. Cover combat. The range where small arm weapons ignore cover is increased from 7 to 10 meters. Okay. Very cool. Cover is more relevant. Hazard removal package. U.S. forces, British forces, and Wehrmacht. Hazard removal package is now standardized across the board for all factions to increase their repair rate by 2.5 for a total of 10 health per second repair. So more standardization, easier to follow. When you play from faction to faction, you'll have a good idea what every package is capable of. With that said, I do like the fact that there are a lot of abilities in the game. Let's use StarCraft for example. StarCraft doesn't bunch a bunch of abilities together in one purchase upgrade. It's very, very... Well, the genius behind StarCraft and why there are so many intricate build orders is because you go to the factory or you go to the engineering bay and there's 6 different upgrades with all very specific, focused buffs and improvements. So you can pick 2 out of the 6 and you have a specific synergy and combination that is your build order, but you have to compromise on the other 4. Whereas if it was all combined into one, it makes for much less interesting gameplay design, in my opinion, from a build order standpoint. So I don't want to see things just consolidated over and over, if that makes sense. Heavy howitzers, artillery, Okay, the BL 5.5, barrage recharge time from 60 to 45. Okay, infantry-based time and passive healing abilities, squad-based time combat abilities such as sprints and passive squad healing are now disabled when the unit is retreating. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Medium AT guns increase the pack-up time from 1.3 to 1.75. However, the AT guns are now more responsive. Okay, so they're making them much more responsive, but more of a pack-up time for the AT guns. Medium artillery. Pack howitzer 4.2. Barrage recharge times from 30 to 20. Wow, okay, so that's substantial. That seems like a substantial buff. Okay, projectiles. Direct fire projectiles, such as direct fire AT guns, autocannons, and flamethrowers, were reviewed. These changes will increase the reliability of vehicles when firing over low obstacles and prevent exploits when firing through objects. All projectiles will immediately collide with obstacles when they miss their target and roll scatter. Projectiles will now use 3D paths to their targets. Damn. This prevents them from auto-colliding with low obstacles in the way they normally would be able to fire over the obstacle. Wow, okay, so fantastic. Just improve the AI. You're not going to have to worry so much about getting over the obstacles. So, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, just better pathing even for projectiles. That's amazing. Recon loiters. Airborne recon loiter plane health increased from 240 to 480. We saw that. The recon plane is 640, though, guys, from 240 to 640, so even more. But this is great to see the buff. Recon artillery plane health increased from 240 to 6. Okay, yeah, so there's the 640. So AA can shoot these things down, but it's going to take a little bit longer. So you're still going to get use out of the ability. Great change. Repair abilities will now have increased speed when they are affected by modifiers. Bonuses will stack to grant faster repair speeds. Pretty sweet. Little optimization you can make. Suppression. Units that are suppressed now take a 33% penalty to weapon scatter on missed hits. Oh, sick. This is cool. This change is meant to increase the chance of weapons such as grenade launchers no longer landing directly on their target when the unit is wielding is suppressed. Fantastic change, I think. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so more synergy there, suppression. Uncrewed machine gun and motors. Target size increased from 1 to 20 to facilitate force attacks on decrewed weapons. Okay. Snipers build time decreased from 50 to 40. That's good. Snipers got hit pretty hard. I feel like snipers were relatively weak in the last patch, so the fact that they hit quicker makes sense. The strength of a sniper really is in the early game phase. U.S. forces have been powerful in 1v1 and weak in large team games. These changes will be toning down the Easy 8 while improving underperforming units like elite infantry and supporting units. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so the 4x4 truck lethality for mid to far range increased by 10%. That's a big change. It's quick, and if you're able to kite and stay out of range, that's a lot of added damage. Air Support Center damage aircraft no longer increases the recharge time of Air Support Center abilities. Okay. Double sortie fuel cost decreased from 50 to 40. P-47 dive bomb cost decreased from 90 to 70. Wow, this stuff is getting cheaper. P-47 dive bomb now deals plus 50% bonus damage to vehicles. Wow, P-47 retriever run cost decreased from 60 to 50. Damn, you guys know me. I love the Air Support Center. It's definitely getting stronger. That's pretty sick, to be honest. And that's just going to, once again, help the Americans in the late game. They don't have that much artillery, so they have the Air Support Center abilities. Bazooka teams were terrible before, so let's see what changes here. Bazookas reload and wind down adjusted for a rate of fire increase. Okay, that's good. Health increase from 90 to 95, so very minimal. These things were also very unresponsive. They wouldn't always fire accurately. I didn't like using them, but hopefully they're more responsive. It was a bug. I would like these teams to be stronger. Captain Routine or Retinue now gains shared veterancy. Off-map motor barrage can now be used when suppressed. Okay, off-map barrage can now be used when suppressed. That's huge. And I like the shared veterancy. So very cool. Engineers. Health increase from 80 to 85. This change does not impact health when upgraded to assault engineers. Okay, so base engineers are a little bit better. It's minimal. Motor, the M1 81mm motor delay fuse ability is primarily meant to demolish emplacement bunkers. However, its current power allows it to devastate team weapons when abilities such as airburst are meant to be premier anti-infantry ability of the motor. Okay, so area of effect damage distance is significantly reduced. Okay, delay fuse mid-range reduced. Delay fuse radius increased from 4 to 5 to better match the effect. Delayed fuse shells cooldown between shots increased from 0.75 to 1.5. Delayed fuse timer from 1.25 to 3 now properly delays the timer. Okay, interesting. Okay, so a little more specific use case with the mortar. Still a good, bunker buster and so forth. M1 or M1919 machine gun team manpower cost reduced from 240 to 220 does not affect the airborne variant. Okay, so cheaper. 220 is pretty cheap. It's not that cheap, but it's pretty cheap, and it should be cheaper because it's weaker, right? M29 Weasel machine gun can no longer target aircraft. That's hilarious. Okay. M375 direct fire range increased from 45 to 50. Yeah, I did feel this mortar carriage was very low range, so that increase is nice to see. M4A1 76mm conversion, fuel cost reduced from 50 to 40. That's a good change. M4 bulldozer gets bunker buster deals plus 100% bonus damage to emplacement. That's huge. So it has a more specific use case here, right? As a bunker buster. Frontal armor increased to 240. Pretty good. Population decreased from 14 to 12. That's good. 14 was pretty high. Scatter angle decreased from 9 to 5. Scatter distance ratio decreased from 1 to 0. So yeah, I think this thing it was kind of a meme, but this thing needed a buff. And now it's very good against buildings, it seems, and placements, and more accurate. Okay, weapon support center. Cost decreased from 120 manpower and 15 fuel to 100 manpower and 10 fuel. Wow. So super cheap. I do like this because if you even go for barracks and you just want one unit, like a sniper, it's not a big investment. I like that. Okay. Armored battle group. The Sherman EZ8 changes, puts EZ8 area of effect and accuracy on par with the standard Sherman 76mm. This is meant to significantly reduce the EZ8's power against infantry. So accuracy increased, area of effect mid-range decreased substantially. Area of effect model limit decreased from 4 to 3. Area of effect radius increased from 4 to 4.5. Okay, so yeah, this thing was just too strong. It hit too hard and it was too accurate against infantry in particular. So I do think this is good. It's a good change. And you could skip the tank depot and go straight for these EZ8s. They were so powerful. They scaled so well. So I think it's good. M8 Scott, auto fire and barrage fire aim time decreased from 1 to 0.5. Fuel cost decreased from 50 to 45. Okay. Special Operations Battle Group, SSF Commandos. So these things are going to receive a buff. Bazooka reload and wind down adjusted fire rate increased from 3.6 to 4.5. Population decreased from 10 to 9. And commando health increased from 95 to 1. So once again, elite units getting buffs, making the mid-game and late game infantry of the Americans stronger. Whiz bang rocket. Oh please! Rockets per barrage increased from 10 to 15. Range increased from 70 to 80. Rocket area of effect mid-range distance increased from 1.5 to 2. Rocket area of effect damage increased to 0.3. Rockets now deal 50% deflection damage. Guys, fantastic! I love this thing. I love the fact that it can be used as like an assault artillery. And guys, if you don't know this, its veterancy allows you to actually convert it to a Sherman. So some cool synergies with Spec Ops. And I do love the fact that this is becoming more viable in terms of its range. Fantastic. I love that. Airborne Battle Group Carpet Bomber now drops 2 additional bombs per bomber. That's fantastic. HMG Paradrop. Manpower from 240 to 220. Recharge time increase from 30 to 75. So it's cheaper, but you're not going to be able to drop 2 of these things within 60 seconds. Now you're going to be able to drop 2 of them within a couple minutes, and it's not that strong at that point, to be honest. Not at all. So you could see, maybe one of these drop, but not a bunch of spams, which is annoying early game. Just a meme. P-47 rocket strafe, damage to buildings reduced by 75%, damaging its infantry reduced by 75%. Oh, okay. So the rocket strafe P-47s are getting a nerf. Delay before the second plane increased from 1 to 2. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think it was a little too strong. Rocket count from 6 to 5. I was just tearing it up with this thing. So it's good to see that it's a little bit more nerfed, not as quick. Paratroopers, cooked frag grenade fuse time decreased from 1.6 to 1. That's pretty substantial. Bazooka reload and wind down adjusted. And rate of fire increase. Carbine shot range lethality increased by 8%. M19 light machine gun lethality increased by 15%. Population decreased from 10 to 9. So paratroopers getting a good buff all around. All of their abilities look like they're getting buffed. So the utility of this unit is going to have a way higher impact, I hope. And I do like that because as of right now, paratroopers compared to riflemen don't make that much sense, especially relying on several of them, right? Their upkeep cost to reinforce and their overall scalability was not that great compared to rifles. Supply drop, cost decreased from 150 to 125 manpower. Okay. Very good. I like that. That was too expensive before. All right, the Wehrmacht. The Wehrmacht has been overperforming, and these changes are meant to tone down overall performance. To promote a more diverse gameplay, some units that have been underused have been improved. 221 armored car, machine gun mid-far lethality increased by 10%, sight increased from 30 to 45. Okay. 2 centimeter flak. This is good because this thing was seeing no play. So huge sight increase and lethality increase. Perhaps we can see this in very early game builds. I would like to see that. More combined arms. 2 centimeter flak, 38. Manpower cost decreased from 320 to 280. Yeah, this thing has almost no application compared to an MG. Why would you ever build a flak gun compared to an MG? Because it could be stolen easier, harder to use, it's more expensive. But it can shred through early game vehicles, so I like that it's cheaper. I hope it gets some play because it is very cool. The Whirlwind bonus damage to aircraft decreased. Looks like by half, but cost decreased from 360 and 70 fuel to 320 and 60 fuel. Very good change. This thing was too expensive. Way too expensive. Grenadier MP-47 machine gun mid-range lethality decreased by 15%. Wow, that is a huge change. That's mid-range lethality. So you got to be super close to maximize this unit. MP-47 machine gun near lethality decreased by 5%. Oh, and the close range lethality decreased. Interesting. Seems like heavy-handed, but I'll be very curious to see. Very curious to see how this overall impacts the unit. It's only 5%. But I hope this is still viable because I do love it. Luftwaffe Battle Group, combat point decreased from 2 to 1. Cost reduced from 75 to 50. Okay. So, pretty good buff. Martyr M3, long range accuracy from 0.45 to 0.4. And then long range accuracy reduced by 12%. So this thing is no longer as accurate at long range, taking a little bit of a cut of range. But with the new buffs to these tank destroyers, I think this is fine. We'll have to see. And this, before these things were so efficient, so it's good to see a little hit. MG42, suppression against suppressed targets from 0.5 to 0.35. Okay. Suppression by other squads increased from 88% to 93%. Okay. So, yeah, so these things are not going to suppress as fast. That's good. I hope with the new buffs to team weapons, this thing isn't too strong, but I also want it to be the strongest MG in the game. I think that's important. I think the Wehrmacht should rely on combined arms because they don't have, necessarily the strongest standalone infantry. So the MG42 needs to be in a good balanced place. Stug 3, all variants. Machine gun burst length reduced by 15% at mid and far. Machine gun can no longer target aircraft. Machine gun accuracy from 45 to 33. So getting a pretty good nerf here. But nothing crazy. Point blank area effect limit decreased from 4 to 3, so it's got to be even closer. Okay, not as big of a nerf as I was thinking. I think this tank will still be viable. Okay. Sorry, guys. British forces. The training center changes impacted the British forces more than anticipated. Yeah, I agree with that. To just some core units are gaining increased performance, and the training center will now be available from the start. That's awesome. We are planning to continue making further improvements to the British in the future. Very cool change. I like the flavor of that the British are a faction that has these upgrades, unlike any other faction, from the beginning of the game. 17-pounder AT gun. Weapon range increased from 70 to 80. Wow. Super good. This thing really needed something, so that's nice. That's a pretty substantial buff. CWT truck, 20mm A gun cost reduced from 75 to 60. Yeah, that thing was like almost never an ideal upgrade. So nice that it's cheaper. Dingo armored car machine gun can no longer target aircraft. Okay. Foot guard, bazooka reload, and wind down adjusted for rate of fire increase. Damn, foot guards are going to be good. Very good. Infantry sections. Oh, here's the interesting thing. These need some work. Bren weapon lethality increased. Thank you very much. By about 4 to 6%. Lethality at all ranges increased by 3%. Population decreased from 8 to 7. That's good. Okay. I like that. Population. I mean, you're looking at a few population there, at least. That can help you eke out like a motor or something, you know? So it's nice. Forward observer base howitzer. Fog of war scatter increased. Ready to aim time reduced. Okay, rotation rate increased. And scatter max decreased from 15 to 6. So hopefully this thing is a little bit more reliable. And it looks like it gets to the target quicker. M3 Stuart light tank. Self-repairability increased from 0.66 to 1.2. I think that's good because it was slow. Stuart utility package cost reduced from 60 to 40. Very good. I love the Stuart. Not as many changes as I thought. I was hoping that the upgrade would be a little bit cheaper. But this is still a good change. I really love the tank and hope that it has some relevance. Training center. Now immediately available at the start of the game, it does not need to be purchased. Okay. Training upgrade experience for infantry team weapons and light vehicles increased from 500 to 800. Oh, that's good. Okay. That's very good. Training upgrade experience for medium and heavy vehicles increased from 500 to 1250. All right, so hopefully these upgrades are more reliable. Vickers heavy machine gun team. Mid and far range lethality increased by 7.5%. Vickers heavy machine gun team. Should be better because it is really weak. So that's good to see. Air and Sea battle group. Cooked mill bomb fuse time decreased from 1.6 to 1 for the commandos. Very good. Commando LMG section now use unique Liam fields that have increased accuracy and damage over time. Standard infantry section at all ranges. Plus 31% increased lethality at short range. Plus 34% at mid. Plus 20 at long. Really cool. I like that. A little bit hard to follow, but I like it. That the elite units are getting a buff. Okay, incendiary carpet bombing run now drops 2 additional bombs per bomber. Bombs drop will now fill the entire reticule correctly. Munitions cost increase from 110 to 150. So stronger, more volume, more damage. Naval blockade command point cost from 2 to 1. That's good. A little bit more applicable. Supply surplus now provides a 25% discount on built resource caches by the player, by Royal Engineers, or those built directly on territory points. That's cool. I like that. That's going to be really cool for team game build orders. Field infirmaries cost decreased from 200 manpower to 150. Very cool as well. So again, the field supplies, field caches, British are going to have more relevance and importance on the team. Okay, DAK. The DAK is receiving adjustments to address key weaknesses in early game options. This is meant to open options for different styles of play. 8 rad armored car. Scatter angle and scatter mix increase from 2 to 3.5. Okay, so it's going to be more scattered. I'm assuming this is going to make it overall less effective. Scatter angles increase. Yeah, so it's going to be a little bit less accurate, I suppose. 250 light carrier. The 8-rad was so good, man. It was so good. So this is probably a good change. 250 light carrier. Cost decreased from 280 to 260. Now gain shared veterancy. Okay, so a little bit cheaper, and the shared veterancy is really nice because it's just going to streamline that for the DAK. Going back to the armored car, guys, there are some instances where like the armored car was so effective that if it was just a little bit less accurate, your units would get away. And because it's so mobile, I think this is a good change. But anyways, let's move on to armored reserves. Cost decrease from 200 manpower and 150 fuel to 100 manpower and 75 fuel. Whoa. Major buff. Requires only the Panzer Command to be purchased. Tiger fuel cost increase from 180 to 240. Oh, okay. So it's easier to get the armored reserves and get the lower level tanks. But if you want the Tiger, it's still going to cost you roughly the same amount of fuel, right? The 75 fuel you're saving here on the upgrade is 2060 fuel here. So you are still able to get the Tiger faster, it seems, in this iteration of armored reserves. But overall, it's not that much of a difference. Overall, you'll be able to get armored reserves faster for other tanks other than the Tiger. I love it. I think that's a really cool change. Assault Grenadiers. Grenade assault cost reduced from 45 to 35 munitions. Very good. I think this was too expensive. That makes more sense. It feels more like a grenade. Combined arms ability now triggers on the 250 mortar half track, the reconnaissance tractor, and the walking Stuka. Very cool. I love the combined arms for all those units because they're very relevant in a game. You usually have them. Flak 36, AT gun team, fire increased substantially to 1 here. Very good. Ready to aim time from 0.125 to 0.25. Reload time increase. Okay, so this flak gun is going to get major buffs, and I like that. I love using this. I think it's a fun style, defensive style to play, and it's very vulnerable. So it should have, reload and fire aim buffs here. The flak half track, bonus damage to aircraft decreased, weapon range increased from 40 to 45. Okay, so once again, AA is still getting a nerf, but it's going to be better overall in multiple use cases against infantry. Okay, the Liege Howitzer, barrage reach time decreased from 30 to 20. Very good. This thing is awesome. Love to see it getting some more love. Martyr 3, long range accuracy reduced by 12%. Panzergrens will now be more powerful without combined arms while retaining the same overall strength. Okay, this was to help address the significant difference in viability of the unit in small versus large games, while still incentivizing combined arms play. So base lethality at mid and long range increased by 10%. Very good. Combined arms accuracy bonus decreased from 30% to 20%, so less impactful. MG42 LMG actually increased by 10%. Okay, so subtle but very impactful change here. Panzer Grenadiers are going to have a lot more standalone power and scalability. I like that a lot. This is good. So combined arms is still very effective, but you could be spread out across the map and not lose in every single instance. Stug 3, all variants, machine gun burst, length, duration, multiplier from 1 to 1. Okay, so 1, 0.95 to 0.7 to 1, 0.8, 0.6. Machine gun can no longer target aircraft. Machine gun for accuracy from 45% to 33%. So looks like Stug is getting a nerf here as well for the DAK. Tiger S mines launcher now deals significantly less damage to infantry, but now will suppress and pin them. Yeah, so this was kind of a meme. This thing was way too ridiculous and strong. It just like shredded infantry. Now it's just going to suppress and pin them and deal less damage. But makes more sense, much more realistic. Walking Stuka rocket launcher. Rocket now deals 40% deflection damage. Very cool. Ooh, interesting. Italian infantry battle group. This is something I just started playing with. Booby traps, increased health on the booby trap from 20 to 140. Oh, wow. Okay, so it was a lot weaker before. That is huge. Now I use the demo charge model. Gustatori reinforcement cost from 40 to 35, so a little bit cheaper. I think this is smart. Gustatori are really expensive. They lost some utility against tanks. I think they should be a little bit cheaper, although they are very strong. SMG moving burst increased from 35% to 100%. Wow. So Gustatori getting some love. I think elite units, it looks like across the board, are getting some love. But I like this. I would have liked to see a little more changes to the Italian infantry battle group in terms of booby traps and so forth. But we'll see, maybe over time that they'll begin to add that. Italian combined arms battle group. Semavente, assault gun, barrage reach time decrease from 90 to 45 seconds. Very good. Yeah, 90 seconds is, if you think about that, guys, a minute and a half, that's ridiculous. Barrage reload decrease from 3.5 to 3 seconds. Ready aim delay on heat shell ability removed. So getting a lot of love there. This thing, as you guys know, is not used that much, but I'll be very curious to see if it's used now. These are some pretty good little changes, but this thing was not that strong. So yeah, curious to see if it sees some love. Strafing run, bonus damage to vehicles decreased from 225 to 200. Damage increased from 10 to 15. So damage against vehicles decreased, but that's bonus damage, but overall damage increased. So better against infantry, which makes sense. Armored support battle group, vehicle awareness. Command point cost increased from 1 to 2. All right, so a little more expensive, but not a major impact. DAK, guys, a lot of love here. I think it might not seem like a lot, but the changes to the Grenadiers in particular, I think is going to be huge, the Panzergrenz. I think this is going to have a bigger impact than people think. All right. We got a lot of bug fixes. I don't know if I'm going to read through all of these, but it's important that we actually read through them, I think, so that we are aware of what's changed in the game. So, fixed a low chance for the game to crash while hovering over the minimap icon of a squad that is currently in combat. Oh, I didn't know that. I've never seen that. Fixed a memory leak in the reflection system. Okay, fix a synchronization issue in the replay launch argument where the teams were uneven or there were unused slots in the match. Errors could occur. Units not spawning from production buildings or friendly teams showing as the enemy. Yeah, I've seen this before, so nice to see that it's fixed. Audio. Added barbed wire cut sound effects. Okay, that's very nice. I remember in Co 2, these were iconic sound effects that were not in Co 3, so that's awesome. Add naval barricade siren sound effects. Very cool. That's going to make for more immersive gameplay. Added propaganda bomb sound effects. Once again, going to really add to the immersion and impact. Added sound effects to custom game context menus. Very cool. Fixed Navy bombardment sound effects to adjust with volume settings. Updated audio treatment for the war cry ability. The sound effect can now be heard by all factions when active. Awesome. I love it. Audio has a huge impact on immersion and quality. Art and animation, quite a bit. Large explosions are now more likely to rend infantry and small explosions more likely to create ragdolls. Churchill black prints right side treads are now playing the correct animation. Deutsche Afrikakorps tank tribes now use the same model and stats as the Wehrmacht version, so more standardization. 5-pounder crew no longer T-poses when aiming at extreme angles. Fixed an animation issue when infantry entered the DAK 2.5 medical truck. Okay. Fixed an issue where the infantry were incorrectly positioned inside the DAK light carrier. Yeah, that was pretty funny. It looked ridiculous. Fixed numerous issues with floating objects when destroyed. Yep, everyone has noticed that. Fixed the Wehrmacht Command Panzer IV coaxial machine gun visual effects to not be hooked up correctly. Okay. Heavy motor team animations now sync up with the barrage timing. Yeah. Improved half-track animations and soldier positioning. Thank you. Yeah. Half-tracks and infantry synergy and like visuals are some of the coolest parts of the game. So I love to see that that's more smooth. Improve idle and driving poses on the Kenkrad crew. Very nice to see that this thing has more responsiveness and positioning because it is vulnerable. Improved missing terrain details. Improve the visibility of visual effects when points are captured. I like that. Increased tank vehicles particle visual effects when an engine is critically hit. That's cool. That's stuff that I love to notice. Reduce camera clipping through the terrain on several maps. Reduce cloud density to improve visuals on foggy map. Resource cache improvements are now properly play construction animation. Cool. That's cool. I love these UI changes and visual changes. Corrected some of the wrong pintle-mounted weapons. The pivot animations of loader and gunner are now matching the tracking fire angle. US Hellcat tarps will now match their cosmetic themes. Awesome. This game is going to be beautiful, guys, over time. Absolutely beautiful to watch. Dynamic Italian campaign, guys. I don't play the campaign. I don't know anything about it, but I'm going to leave a link to this patch notes in the description below. You can read through all of these campaign changes. There are quite a bit. North African operation changes. And all right, guys, gameplay changes. There are a ton of gameplay changes here. There are so many. I'm not going to be able to read through all of this, but I really recommend that you guys go through these gameplay changes. Look at this. There are so many changes, and some of these have major gameplay implications. So it's something maybe I can revisit in the coming weeks, and something we're going to notice in game. But I would absolutely read through all of these gameplay changes. There are so many here. I mean, if you just look at, I read earlier up here, Gusatori can now build resource caches. Okay, that's a big change. The M1 anti-tank on focus sight ability has a 10-second delay, so it's very important to know. M3 grant maintain prioritize vehicle ability now functions correctly. So yeah, there's just a lot of changes here that are important. Maybe I'll go through these in the future, but make sure you guys read through these gameplay changes. But let's continue down. UI and UX. Major changes. Oh my god. Okay. How many changes are here? Okay. So a little bit less. Buff indicator will now appear over the 3-inch motor team. Assault package from the Grenadiers now use the correct icon when it is in the upgrade queue. Controls profile text now properly aligns in all languages. Fix the name issuing the paratrooper grenade ability. Fix the ping message visual for the friendly players. Fix a tooltip issue where the text would appear when attempting to build base structures too close to other buildings. Fixed a UI issue where the several British tanks did not have portraits or UI. Fixed an issue with the Panzer Arm build auto ability. Fixed an issue where the DAK passive repair used a healing icon rather than a repair icon. Okay. Fixed an issue where ability requirement text is sometimes blank. Fixed an issue where British heavy machine guns and mortars have the incorrect minimap icon. Fixed an issue where flak emplacement did not display the text for veterancy awards. Fixed an issue where the M29 Weasel with towed 50mm anti gun toe tip was incorrect. Fixed an issue where the recovery half-track, salvage, and rapid advance ability icons overlapped. Fixed an issue where the Stewart Ace was missing in portrait and the victory splash screen. Fixed an issue where the Stewart Mark target displayed double requirements. Okay. Fixed an issue where the Wehrmacht team weapons had incorrect portraits and text weapon decrewed. Fixed missing and inconsistent key names in remap controls tab. Fixed refresh buttons in custom game lobby. Fixed missing portraits of the 25-pounder. I love to see new portraits. Improved the command tank coordinator ability tooltip. Improved the majority of in-game tips to correct the disparity between functionality and ability. Improved unit production. Prerequisites not being properly displayed. Okay, that's nice. Made the exclusive control groups setting now enabled by default. Self-repair and smoke barrage no longer overlap. The mouse cursor will now show the build icon when placing a new construction or hovering over a party built construction. Very cool. Updated design for the team weapon setup bar. Updated the visual style of action bars that appear on the decorator. Players can now toggle the tab navigation on and off from the settings screen. Accessibility general selection or section. All right, guys, I am exhausted. I need a drink of water real quick. That was brutal. And only thing we didn't really go through are the gameplay changes, so make sure you check those out. Still nothing about the floating weapon bugs. Gotta love the comments. Solid changes, but buffed US Airborne Support Center, really? Those MG strafes would make team weapons obsolete. That's a joke. We'll see. We'll see about that. Team weapons did get improvements, so it's all around the board. Air Support Center is really strong already. So I am surprised they did get buffed the way they did, but not as much against vehicles. That's important to remember. DAK is still the only faction lacking AT. Tank hunters are way too weak. I'd hope for some penetration buffs. Yeah, we'll see. I kind of was hoping that the DAK would get a little bit more AT, or maybe some manpower reduction costs in terms of their upgrades for like AT grenades, for example, or something. But it's still too early to tell. Never been more hyped since the plane changes and summary work of the last patch. You guys are on a roll. Great vehicle and pathing changes, DAK adjustments, and off maps are making my whole summer. Keep it up. Love the positivity here. These are really easy to dodge if you micro a little bit, or if you just hit the retreat button. Yeah, exactly. It's a good point against the Air Support Center abilities. They're easier to dodge, and the fact that the weapon teams are more responsive now will make it even easier to counteract them. Surprised Stugs still have their crazy armor. Yeah, Stugs are still strong, guys. They got a nerf, but they didn't get hit as hard as I thought. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed this. Finally got through it. Fantastic update. There's so much here. I cannot wait to play. I'm going to jump into that as soon as I can. Guys, look out for some videos, some games being played. Hopefully we get the new maps showcased, and I'll see you guys on the next one.